This segment of What's Up Kansas City is being brought to you by 777 Construction. Call 816-349-1517 for all your commercial, residential, contracting needs. What's up, Kansas City? I'm your host, Glenn Brian Frizzell. Today we are filming at the 12th Street Courthouse in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. Today's special guest is Jackson County Executive Michael Sanders. Mr. Sanders, welcome to the program again.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for appearing. Let's talk regional transit.
Okay.
What kind of agreement understanding does Jackson County now have with Union Pacific Railroad?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's an historic agreement for us. Now, the Union Pacific Railroad is one of the 7 largest railroads in the world. They have trackage rights, which means they have tracks that run through a variety of areas in Jackson County and therefore Kansas City. We inked a deal this last December, ultimately, and then announced it later, with the Union Pacific Railroad that allows us to buy up to roughly 23 miles of trackage rights. And there's some permutations to that, but up to 23 miles, the main route of which runs from essentially Pleasant Hill, but frankly a little north of that, northern Lee Summit, all the way to past the stadiums, just past the stadiums, and then some other tracks that go to downtown Kansas City at 3rd and Grand that's still owned by the Union Pacific Railroad. For us, it's a big deal, and here's why. If you think about how we're going to get regional transit done, and I know we've got the starter lines in terms of the streetcar routes in downtown, but what makes sense and what's going to make those routes work, how it all then comes together, is you have thousands of people that essentially come from eastern Jackson County, the suburbs. They get dropped off at 3rd and Grand, jump on that streetcar, and then move. That's what's going to really pump the ridership and make that process work. Well, up until that announcement of that agreement, it was great to talk about regional mass transit. It was great to talk about how it could potentially work, but it wasn't a reality. It was just lines on a map. It was sort of Clay Chastain-esque lines on a map. What this allows us to do for $59 million is actually purchase those right-of-ways and own them into perpetuity, which means forever. We would ultimately own those tracks. Run trains 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it's not just trains, it's also trails. We can put trails in there, which then ultimately hooks in to the Katy Trail in the state of Missouri. So it's an amenity that in and of itself is going to be a great thing for the people of Kansas City. Now with that, imagine being able to take a train and be dropped off just a few hundred yards south of where Arrowhead, the gate to Arrowhead is, right? So you're going to a football game, you can pick a train up there, then go back to your home in Kansas City or wherever you want to go. That's a great thing for all of us in the long term in terms of what we get done. $59 million, that's roughly half of what we thought the offer may be for the purchase. So for us, that's a great deal, right? What we're doing now to try and purchase that, what we want to try and do is leverage federal funds to do that. We're looking at a $20 million Tiger grant, a $36 million transportation infrastructure grant from the federal government. There would be some local match, obviously, that we have to provide. We're going to work with all of our partners or governmental partners locally.
And Mr. Sanders, what do these grants mean for, what do these provisions mean for the future of Jackson County and regional transit?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, if we were able to get this done, it's just absolutely huge. It makes regional transit possible. If you think about a vibrant, growing city. I mean, you're a young guy, right? You want to live in a city where you can get out of your car. You can drive. Don't have to drive to and from wherever you want to go. You can make a decision to ride the train, which then hooks in with the buses, which then is an integrated mass transit system. Cities that have these integrated mass transit systems are the cities that are growing in the future, right? I also talk about it's not just about economic growth, it's about getting people to and from their jobs and where they want to go. It's expensive to own a car. Right now in Kansas City, you really can't, it's difficult to live in the city of Kansas City without owning a car. It can be done, but it's difficult. If you take the top 100 cities, very difficult. The top 100 cities in the United States, the top 100 cities, that we rank 98th in terms of access to mass transit. That's not, you don't want to be 98th. You want to be 98th in crime,
No, you don't.
Or bad, but in terms of a good issue, which is mass transit, to be 98th is nothing to be proud of.
Let's go for the top 10.
Go for the top 10, and we can do that, and we can do it in a way which is very inexpensive compared to what other cities can do this for. You got $4 billion plus being spent in Denver. This is something we can do for a few $100 million, right? A few $100 million, I should say, coming in from eastern Jackson County, the tie-in with this transit line downtown, and you begin to transform the city and how people move and how they work. And let's look at another thing. Is look at the young entrepreneurs of the future. Who are those intellectual entrepreneurs, and what cities are they deciding to live in? Right now, we're losing that intellectual talent. They're not coming to Kansas City, or they're moving from Kansas City. Young entrepreneurs, when you talk to young intellectual talent, they want to live in cities where they can get out of their car. The iPhone, right? You got one on you, I'm sure, right? The iPhone is how people stay connected today. The University of Michigan did a study on millennials, 35 and younger, and they asked the question, would you rather have a new car or the new iPhone, right? 2 out of 3 said we take the iPhone over the car.
Wow, that's an amazing comment.
Amazing comment. And you know what? So I say, don't theorize. This isn't a think experiment. This is reality. And the reality is hitting us in the face. And that is people 35 and younger are making decisions. If you'd rather have an iPhone than a car, you're going to decide to live in a city that's got access to trails and transit and trains and buses where you can get around and get out of your car and be productive and work and connect in ways different from when my generation came up. It's fascinating in terms of looking at now. I think the number is 28% of people 16 years old are even seeking a license. That's unheard of. That's a marker in terms of what's going on in the United States that we got to think and plan for. So what's our city look like 20 years from now if we don't begin this investment in regional transit, right?
And Mr. Sanders, will there be a sales tax proposal to help fund the investment?
Well, right now we have none. Right now we're looking to the federal government. We've paid in. There is a gasoline tax that's paid right now to the federal government. There are millions of dollars that flow to the federal government to pay for these kinds of transit projects. We want to bring some of that money back to Kansas City. None of that money has come back to us.
And we would like to point out that the streetcar initiative is different than what we're talking about here, which is commuter, regional transit. Commuter rail would connect Kansas City, Lee Summit, Raytown to eastern communities such as Blue Springs and Independence. We've already talked a little bit about why it's important for the public to invest in regional transit. We would like to talk to you a little bit about what the Jackson County Drug Task Force is doing currently. We know they're doing productive work trying to keep our streets safe places for us to live, play, and work in. Mr. Sanders, can you tell us a little bit about the task force highlights from this year and last year, some of the positive things that they've been doing?
Yeah, the Jackson County Drug Task Force, if you think about crime, right, and so shifting gears then from transit, regional, and let's look at combat, another regional thing, and that's really if you look at the problems that we face as a community, whether it's crime, whether it's transit, economic development, these aren't issues for one city, one neighborhood. It's our whole community has to come together to look at these issues. Combat, and specifically the Drug Task Force, does that in a very creative way. Came into existence in the late 80s, early 90s, the Drug Task Force, and it takes detectives and it takes law enforcement officials from all throughout the county and looks at the issue holistically, not just in Independence or Kansas City or this area or that area. Because if you look at people that prey upon us, people that commit violent crimes, sell narcotics, commit these crimes, right? The issue there is they prey upon municipal boundaries, right? They don't just commit a crime in Kansas City; they'll commit a crime in Kansas City, but then go to Grandview or to Independence.
That's an
and a lot of
fact.
Absolutely, and I think there's this belief that in Lee Summit or in Buckner, it doesn't really exist for us out here. I'm telling you, it does exist, and that people, that commit these crimes prey upon these municipal boundaries. And so what the Drug Task Force specifically does is it takes a large number of detectives, up to 19 detectives, goes out, finds these individuals, prosecutes these individuals, and brings them to justice. Now, it's been highly successful. 3 years in a row, the Jackson County Drug Task Force has been picked as the law enforcement unit of the year for the entire state. 114 counties, lots of different law enforcement officials all throughout this region, all throughout this state. 3 years in a row, they're the unit of the year. That's remarkable. The person that's in charge, a guy by the name of Dan Cummings. Dan Cummings this year was the CEO of the year, the law enforcement official of the year, which is remarkable. So it's been very, very successful for us. I'll tell you something to really think about too. Not only are they doing that, they're bringing a large number of people to justice, but you go back and you look at the issue of whether it was crack cocaine in the early 1990s or methamphetamine in the early 1990s. Without a drug task force, without this regional approach, we couldn't have really impacted the issue of crime in our community. So we just go back 20 years and look at how it was, how frightening it was for us, right? We were talking to some people here a couple of years ago out of Dade County, Miami, and their big issue is this issue. Regional, preying upon municipal boundaries, developing regional task forces, something we've been doing for 20 years. So back in the early 1990s, we were the methamphetamine capital, not of the state or the region or the Midwest, but the world, right? More methamphetamine bought and sold and manufactured right here, right where we live, right, than any other place in the world. The reason why that's no longer the case is because of the Drug Task Force.
And that's no longer the case.
No longer the case. We're not even on the radar screen. Now, there is always an issue, right? As long as there's people that want and people that sell and people that distribute, it's always going to be an issue. But the drugs that come here now come from Mexico and come up. So it's not manufactured here like it was. It's had a massive impact.
How is the Jackson County Drug Task Force funded, Mr. Sanders?
It's combats quarter-cent sales tax. It's been funded since 1989, but it doesn't just do that. I mean, it looks at the issue combat. It doesn't just look at the issue as a law enforcement issue, which in this context it is regionally. Primarily what it pays for is treatment, drug court, housing up to 500 people in terms of drug treatment all throughout this community. So it's a real full court press, we'll call it, right? On drug crime and crime in our community, looking at violent crime, getting people to come forward, look at the issue of narcotics, primarily as a treatment issue, though. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, those moving large amounts of narcotics have to be prosecuted.
And let's talk a little bit about combat, Mr. Sanders. I don't have to tell you that this first weekend in May, Kansas City was filled with violence. I believe it's really alarming when what the young kids are seeing are the examples that us older men are providing for them of how to behave in their communities, in their homes. Mr. Sanders, can you tell us a little bit about what is Don't Look the Other Way and how we can effectively apply that program to combat violence and drugs in our neighborhoods?
Absolutely, and it's violent crime is what we want to target. So combat wants to go primarily violent crimes, large level drug dealers, drug manufacturers, violent crime, and drug treatment. I mean, those are the main things we want to look at. So in terms of the sort of Step Up, Speak Up program, or Don't Look the Other Way, right? The issue there is if you've got someone that's committing violent crime, invariably it's people. It's someone in the community that saw something, that knows something, or heard something that comes forward to bring these people to justice, right? I don't care who we are, where we live. When violent crime is committed, it's a crime against all of us. An individual that commits a violent crime is going to continue to commit violent crimes. It impacts everyone in this community. And I think there's this thought of, well, don't snitch, don't come forward, but the reality is that just makes our community less safe and certainly more dangerous. Police can't do it on their own, right? Sheriff's Department can't do it on its own. Prosecutors can't do it on their own. It requires someone to come forward with that information to target the investigation, right? To bring that information forward so that individual can be arrested and ultimately prosecuted and taken off our streets. When someone decides to pick up a gun and shoot someone in our community, that's crossing the line. This don't snitch mentality, it has to cease because the people that it's harming are us. It's us in the community, and we have to begin to bust through that. So what we've done is, with this program, is go out, knock on doors, go directly to people in the community to bring that message out so they see prosecutors out there, elected officials, law enforcement officers, knocking on doors, talking to people directly. I think that's absolutely critical, right? That those personal relationships are developed. But additionally, through combat, right? If for whatever reason an individual doesn't feel comfortable calling the police department, they can call us at combat. Mm-hmm. And we always say, it can be anonymous. We don't care if it's anonymous. Call the combat hotline. It can be absolutely anonymous. You have to tell us who you are. We just want the information. Now, it's great if you tell us who you are at some point, but at the end of the day, we don't track who calls. We just want the information because for us, it allows us to target individuals to figure out who's doing this, who's harming people in our community, so we can ultimately begin that investigation.
It's us in the neighborhood, you say, Mr. Sanders. Has social media changed the dynamics of the conversation to where people can pick up the phone and type in a news tip to the police station and we automatically apprehend the suspect? Does it make that process faster?
Well, I'll tell you what, look at cell phones, right? Mm-hmm. Videotape something, right? Good or bad, right? Look at what can now happen with videos, right? Look at what can happen with someone texting us or twittering us, right? Or whatever, of course. It begins to change the dynamic, and I think people are very comfortable. I may not want to pick up the phone and call, but I'll send you an email, or I'll Twitter you something, or I'll send you a video anonymously of what occurred. All that stuff's fantastic. I mean, all that is changing the dynamic of what goes on. Once again, all we want is the truth. We just want to know what's going on out there, and it's the community that ultimately decides whether people are arrested or not.
I'm a reluctant convert, but I do think having an iPhone will make it a little easier to send the information to the police that will help possibly solve a crime that has been committed on my block. Mr. Sanders, we know that Combat issued a while ago a request. Please, community members, send in your proposals, your innovative projects to help police our streets, to help combat violence and drugs. How responsive has the community been thus far to that plea, to that proposal?
We've got a large number of programs, people that came forward, and we wanted to look at people in the community. We wanted to look at entities, think outside the box. Let's not go with, not that there's anything wrong with the entities that are currently funded by the city or by the state. We wanted to really think outside the box and look at those sort of creative ways to impact the issue of violent crime in our community. And so we're really at the infancy of this. So we're a few months into it. We're going to reevaluate towards the end of the year and see what programs are working. To be blunt, our goal is not to fund all these entities. It's to take the ones that are good, take the ones that are working, that are having an impact, fund those handful, jettison the rest, and then go through another round and really look at, at the end of the day, look at people that are creative. It's people in the community that see crime, that have creative ideas that say, gosh, if I just had a small grant, I could get this program up and running. That's who we want to reach out and really bring in and say, let's look at those creative ideas. Look outside the four corners of these governmental buildings. Look outside of the community for the people that are there, that see what's going on, that have creative ideas. Invest in that and look at new creative ways to do things. I'll tell you, it was that kind of investment that started the drug court program. It was that kind of investment that started the drug task force, or started a lot of the programs, this Step Up, Speak Up program, right? You know, it came from smart people in the community that came forward with ideas, and it's investing in those ideas, ways to make our community safer that we want to look at for the future. Not just now, but in the future as well.
And we have bright, talented young people to that future that you mentioned who can invest their time and energy to create these innovative projects and proposals. So my next to last question, Mr. Sanders, anti-violence funding does not affect funding for drug treatment and prevention activities, no?
No, it's all there. It's all under one umbrella, right? So under one umbrella we have, whether it's a large amount goes to prevention, goes to drug treatment, it goes to drug court. It's how those programs are funded in Jackson County through the combat tax. If those programs went away, we would lose hundreds of treatment beds that are available every day. We'd lose our drug court program, which takes individuals that are going to go in the system. By the way, we have the only dismissal system in the state of Missouri, one of the handful left in the United States, and that is what we want to be able to do is say, if you're an individual that's in the system, what's the goal here? The goal isn't to put you in prison. The goal is to get you off drugs, to get you out and be a productive member of society. That's the goal.
Yes.
I think a lot of times in law enforcement, that goal is missed. It becomes about statistics. We put these people in jail. We committed these arrests, right? That's not where we want to be. We want to be looking bigger picture. What's the long-term goal? Individuals that graduate from the drug court program, I haven't looked at these stats in about 18 months, but as of 18 months ago, as we're almost 20 years into this, 89% of those that go through the drug court program never reoffend anywhere in the United States. Mm-hmm. They're not picked up for anything. They're out of the program. They have jobs. When you graduate, you have a job. You're going to college. You have a degree. They're productive. They're paying taxes. You know what I always say is, your neighbor may be a graduate of the drug court program and you don't know it. How much better is that to have roughly 90% to go through the program that never reoffend? And look at the recidivism rates for those that don't go through drug court. It's almost the reverse, right? And so if you graduate from the drug court program, you're productive. You're not out breaking into homes, stealing cars, selling narcotics, doing all the things that we don't want you to do in society. That's a great program to invest in. But for combat, that program wouldn't exist. We had the second drug court program in the United States, started through the combat program. First one was in Dade County, Miami. Now drug court programs are all throughout the United States. The other value, by the way, of what we do with drug court is if you graduate from the program, we dismiss your case. So it's not just that you don't go to prison, you don't have a case. You can vote, you can receive benefits, you don't have that conviction hanging over your head, so it really changes lives.
Definitely benefits to that. Mr. Sanders, you seem really energetic about your job and position of being a county executive. Are you proud? Can you look back and reflect and say, I've accomplished most of the things, many of the things that I set out to do, and my city is a better place because of it?
It's not about I, and it really isn't. I mean, people say that, but it's not. I mean, this is a big entity. We have 1,500 employees. There are a lot of elected officials. There are a lot of leaders out here, and it's really not even about the government. It's about the community. It's everybody coming together to get these things done. Every day you wake up, there are some great people in Jackson County that are running the drug court program, that are doing these jobs. They're the ones that get it done. I get to sit in front of the camera here and talk about it, which is great. You know, you help set the direction. I hope that in my part I've done good here and sort of helping to set that direction. But at the end of the day, it's other people out there getting it done. It's people in the community. It's someone picking up the phone to take a violent offender off the street. Those are the people that really get it done for us.
You certainly couldn't do it without a talented staff. Thank you for mentioning that. Do you have any upcoming projects that you're working on that maybe you could share with our viewers?
Oh, let me tell you, we got, I think, a great thing for the 4th of July. Okay, it's all going to be free. Longview Lake. I want to make sure I pump this up. The 4th of July. So this is, by the way, this year is the 70th anniversary, 70th, right? Yeah, 70th anniversary of D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. And we really wanted to do it right. So here's what we're doing. Free to the public. We're going to have a band. Free to the public. Come out. I think we had over 10,000 people last year. By some estimates, we had almost 20,000 people last year. Down by Longview Lake. But here's what we're going to have. So check this out. We're going to have the largest explosion, the largest firework in North America. Number one.
Wow.
Barack Obama and DC's got nothing on us. We got the largest in North America. Now, it won't be the longest. They got millions of bucks. We don't. We won't be the longest, but we're going to have the largest explosion in North America. What we're told is you may be able to see this on the Iowa border. Topeka, Columbia, Iowa border. How about that?
On the Iowa border. A big bang for the celebration of the 70th anniversary of D-Day.
That's it.
Mr. Sanders, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. My name is Glenn Bryan Frizzell. Today we talked to County Executive Michael Sanders about regional transit, about combat, and about the Police Drug Task Force. Check out more video online at www.whatsupkansascity.net. And remember, the sky's the limit. Aim high. If you shoot for the moon and you miss, at the very least, you would have landed among the stars. Thank you. Until next time. Take care.
CMG wants you to always remember, the victory we call success goes to the best prepared. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Thanks.